In the last section, we created a new test file called create test. Create test is meant to test to make sure that our user model can correctly create a new record in the database. Just to clarify on the name of this file a little bit, all of our test files will end with _test. So when I say create test here, I don't mean like, hey, I want to create a test. I'm saying that we are testing the create functionality of our user model that we just created. We left off in the last section by saying that inside of an it statement, we need to make an actual assertion, something that is going to compare one value to the other, and then Mocha is going to interpret the result of that comparison and tell us either our test failed or it passed. The last thing that I had mentioned was that Mocha gives us global access to this describe and it function, but it doesn't give us global access to anything to actually make an assertion. So to make an assertion, we have to import an assertion library at the top of our file. Now this was already installed for us when we installed Mocha, so we don't have to do any work here. We're just going to say const assert equals require assert. We use this assert thing right here. It is a function to make an assertion within our it block. The assertion is going to expect to be passed a Boolean of some type. So traditionally we will compare two values and say I assert or I expect that like this value is equal to this value. If it's true, then our test pass. If it's fails, then hey, our spec is going to fail. Let's just see how this thing works in practice. I'm going to say assert, and I'm going to assert that, how about 1 + 1 = 2? Nice basic comparison here. This statement right here is going to evaluate to true, so I would expect my test right now to pass. To run our tests after we put some assertion together, we use the command line to run our test suite. So I'm going to flip back over to iterm, or whatever terminal it is that you're running. It doesn't make a difference if you're using iterm or the built-in terminal. And once here, I'm going to run the command npm run test. Now when I run this, yeah, we're probably going to see an error message here. By default, we usually use the convention of npm run test to run our entire test suite inside of our project. But at this point, we haven't actually done any setup for the command npm run test just yet. So we need to first make sure that we put in a little bit of code somewhere inside of our project to make sure that our test suite actually gets executed. So the question very quickly becomes, where the heck do we run this command? Where do we write this thing, right? Well, that's part of the purpose of the package.json file that we created when we first started up this project. I'm going to open up the package.json file. And inside of here, you'll see that there is a scripts section inside of this file. The only existing script that we have right now is the test script. And when it's ran, it prints out error no test specified and exits the process with an error code. Okay, well, that's definitely where the error message that we just got came from. So we can see right here, error no test specified. Clearly it's coming from the script right here. So we are going to delete the message that's in here right now. I'm just going to take out the entire thing, everything from echo to exit 1. Then we're going to replace it with our testing command. So I'm going to place in here just one command, Mocha. Do make sure that you have the term Mocha inside of double quotes. You don't want to have it inside of single quotes, like that. You also don't want it to have just Mocha by itself. You want to have Mocha surrounded by double quotes like so. Now that we've defined our testing command, we can execute our test suite at the command line by, again, running npm run test. As just a little bit of side knowledge, if we ever add any other scripts inside of this file, we can run them by using the same type of command right here. So if I made another script called script, I don't know, print file or something, whatever we want to run, I would invoke it from the command line by running npm run print file. All right, anyways, let's run the test and see what we get. So we'd run npm run test, and we get the describe string at the very top where it says creating records. We still see the same string that we saw before of our Mongoose library connecting to Mongo. And then we see the individual it statement that we just added, saves a user, and it looks like it's passing because of course 1 + 1 is in fact 2. just for posterity's sake, let's make this test fail. I'm going to say 1 plus 1 equals 3, which is, of course, I think it's not true. I don't know. Let's run this again. And then this time around, we get a nice big red error message that tells us, yeah, something went wrong here. You thought this thing was going to be true. In fact, it was false. This is part of why it's really great to have nice string statements that you pass to describe and it, because you can imagine that if you start getting like several hundred tests inside of a single project, you want to be able to find, or at least have a reasonable idea of what was tested when a test actually fails. So we know by looking at this description right here, creating records saves the user. All right, creating records saves the user. Okay, it's this test right here that's failing. Definitely makes it a lot easier when you have a nice string description. All right, I'm going to scroll back down to the bottom. And now we know how to create or how to execute tests and make assertions inside of our Mocha code. We're going to take another pause, and then we're going to come back and dive right into testing the user model that we created a couple sections ago that currently sits inside of our source directory. So I'll see you in just a second, and then we'll do our test for our user model.